is Anna Catterson, and welcome to the Instructional Design Training. This evening we are showcasing Microsoft Word. Over the past couple of months, I've received quite a few emails from patrons, from colleagues and employees and adjunct instructors on how to do some Microsoft Word items or features. And so I've been compiling a list of all of these questions I've been getting, and I've broken them down into more of an introduction level, and then the second part of this is the advanced level. So there's actually another training that's coming up that is advanced, and if you wanted to partake in that, please let me know and I'll send you the connection information. But in this training, we're going to focus primarily on what the ribbons are and some of the options underneath those ribbons. We're also going to focus on tabs and how to set tabs and how to get that ruler to work for you. I also had several questions relating to tables. Once you make a table, how can you apply it quick style, which means you save that style and then reapply it to other tables. So we'll practice with it this evening. We will work with shapes. I'll show you how to format a shape and add text and make a shape a hyperlink. One of the largest questions I believe I get is that of section breaks and page breaks and how to get header and footers to appear different on every page. And so that's something that I'll show you quickly how to do. And then the last two items is under the Review tab, and then of course saving, restricting, setting options, those sort of things. So we've got quite a few things on the agenda for this training, and I'll go ahead and get started. To begin, I wanted to introduce you to the ribbons up at the top. There's actually several ribbons that you can select from. It starts off with the File option at the far left, and under the File option you have items such as saving, opening, closing. I figured that most of these are pretty common sense. You probably know how to use all of these tools. And then in the mid column we have some items for sharing and permissions, and then in the last column we have properties. For example, we can see how long it took somebody to work on this document, how many pages it is. We can see when it was last modified, when this document was created, which is great information for a faculty member, especially if they have a research paper that's due. If you see a created date that was a few years ago, that might cause some concern. So this is some good information here. And then we also have the options in that left-hand corner. We're going to spend some time talking about that here in just a few minutes. Some other ribbons that are up at the top include the Home ribbon, and most of these features are formatting features for your paragraph and for your font. There's also the Styles, which plays a large part in most of these other tabs at the top. We also have the Insert ribbon, and this is where your interactivity becomes. You have your images and your smart art, your shapes, also your header and footer and your text box. Items that create that interaction can be found here, including hyperlinks. We have the Page Layout ribbon, which allows you to do your margins and your orientation. Probably the largest thing I use on the page layout here is the Wrap Text and the Bring Forward and Send Backward, this Arrange panel over here, where you can actually wrap text around a different shape if you wanted to do so. The References is also very widely used. You can create citations here. You can also create your table of contents and mark entries for an index or appendix here. If you have a table of authorities, you can also insert it here as well. And we will be spending a little additional time on the references in the advanced tutorial. The Mailings allows you to do a smart mail merge. I did have a couple of questions of that, and that will also be covered in the advanced area. I'll show you how to embed a Microsoft Excel document and create a simple mail merge. The Review tab is probably where most of my colleagues spend their time, where you can accept or reject comments. You can also check the grade level of a paper to see what grade level your student wrote in. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but if not, I'll be sure to show you how to check that grade level. It's great when you're looking at a student's work to say, did you realize that you wrote in 5th grade level? It's 5th grade writing. And I'll show you how you can check that grade level here fairly quickly. The View tab allows you to look at the document in different views, and all of these really are repeated in this right-hand corner as well. You've got a few different view options down here, as well as the zoom that allows you to zoom in and zoom out. There's a web layout, there's an outline view, and so forth. And then I have added the Developer tab to my Microsoft Word, and most of my colleagues do not have this Developer tab added, and I'll show you how to add that under the options. The Developer tab allows you to build custom forms that are fillable, so you can control the content of some of the information in Word, lock it down, and then only have certain information be fillable. So it's very similar to an online form, and then you can publish it as a PDF and send it to other people and collect the results and so forth. And that is probably the majority of what we'll go over in the next training, is how to make those fillable forms. And it's all under this Developer tab right here. You also have the document template, which is very important. If you create a syllabus, for example, many times in a semester, and you need it to have the same style, you can save it as a template, so the next time you open it up, the styles, everything is there, you just have to replace the content. So the Developer tab can be extremely useful for that. I want to go back to the File menu and talk briefly about the Options menu. I'm going to select the file and then click on Options to bring up the general options for Microsoft Word. And I'm not sure how many of you have worked with this before, but really this is the heart and soul of the program. This allows you to make modifications, customize how you want to work with the software. So first, under the General tab, you can put in your own name. If you aren't using your own personal computer, often it will have somebody else's name attached to it. So that's the first thing I would suggest. There are also different color schemes. You could go with blue, silver, or black. Not a whole lot of options, but you do have some. I have mine set to the black view. We also have a second tab up at the top, which is Display, and this is how you want to see those characters on your screen. For example, spaces will show up as dots, and tabs will show up as arrows, and so forth. And if you wanted to see those markings always, you can choose that option. There's some printing options too. You can print the background colors or update the fields before printing. So just some general information here under Display. The Proofing tab is where you want to pay close attention to. I've heard several colleagues around campus saying, I really hate that it underlines some grammar errors. Well, you can control what you want it to underline if there are mistakes. And to do so, you can ignore words, for example, that are in uppercase in a spell check, or ignore words that contain numbers or internet and file addresses. All of these can be checked. That way, it'll save you time when you're proofing your document. On down, there are some very interesting settings right in this section. And when you correct spelling and grammar in Word, you can actually turn off the grammar and just check the spelling, and that's where that feature is. You can also uncheck where it's marking the grammar errors as you type. So there are some options here that you can set. You can see that I have it checked, that it checks the spelling as I type. But if I'm typing a lengthy document or I'm doing a lot of spacing and underlining, you may want to take that off because it's going to constantly tell you that there's an error, even though you very well know that there isn't an error. And then this little checkbox is really hard to see in the midst of all of this great stuff, but it's called Show Readability Statistics. And this will tell you if your paper was, or what your paper's grade level is. So if you check that little box right there, if you open up a document and then run the spell check, at the very end of that spell check, it'll tell you what the grade level is. And I'll show that to you here in just a few minutes. But that's what you need to make sure that you have marked in order to get that feature. Okay, let's go to the next tab over here to Save. It will save files in a Word document, DOCX file extension. DOC used to be the old extension for Word files, and now we've gone to the DOCX. It's compatible now, but when it first came out, there were some hiccups with that, with getting it to work, compatibility with different versions. But now it is very compatible, and it will work with the OCX. You can also set the auto recover information every 10 minutes or every 15 minutes. I've got mine set fairly low. The option down here at the bottom, if you use a lot of fancy fonts, this option to embed the fonts in the file is good. That way, if somebody does not have the font that you are typing in, the font will actually be embedded into the file, so they won't have any strange symbols pull up. And if you're sharing files with students that are Microsoft Word, I would encourage you to make sure you check that box, especially if you do not convert them to a PDF. If you're sharing Word documents, it's a good thing to note that a lot of students will not have the same fonts that you have. So by choosing that option, you're making it accessible to all of your students. We have a few more ribbons over here on the left. We have the language ribbon, of course, that English is our default language. We also have an advanced ribbon, and I would encourage you to go through and look at some of these. These are all just customizations, such as smart paragraph selections and smart cursors. And then we also have this one here, which is called the Customize ribbon. And you'll notice that this is where you get the developer toolbar right here. And you see that mine has a check mark beside it, and that's what you'll want to do, is place a check mark beside that developer ribbon, and that way you'll get the forms that you can build in Microsoft Word. So just making that little check mark there will turn that on. Also, if you do a lot of video and you don't want to take your students outside of your Word document, you can actually embed a video in YouTube directly into your Word document, and you'd want to do that with the Developer tab. So make sure that you have a mark there, and I'll share with you in this session and in the advanced session how to use some of those tools in the Developer tab. Now also there's some others. There's the Quick Access Toolbar, which is up here in the top left-hand corner. There's also some add-ins that you can install, and you can see I've got several in my program. Got some measurement converters. All of these are free, and you can download them from Microsoft Office. They have literally hundreds of them that you can download. And a lot of them, like the financial symbols, you know, Microsoft Word doesn't have all of the algebra equation symbols in there. So you can download the expansion packs here, put into your program, and then you'll have those special characters available to you. So that's what those are. And there's some measurement converters, like if you type 1/3, 1/3, it'll automatically put in superscripted into a 1/3, so it actually looks like a fraction and not a 1/3. That makes sense. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and choose OK to accept my settings here, and that takes me back to the ribbon, and then you'll notice that the developer toolbar should be displayed. All right, to navigate in Microsoft Word, there's a couple of shortcuts I thought I would share. I'm a pretty huge shortcut junkie. I don't know about the rest of my audience, but if you need a reference guide on Microsoft.com, if you just do a quick search for shortcuts, you'll find all kinds of shortcuts that Microsoft has. And some of them I use, some of them I don't. I thought I would just share a few that you might use in the future. So Microsoft.com, and just do a search for shortcuts, and that'll pull all of those up. Probably one of the easiest ways to navigate in Microsoft Word is using the Control key. For example, Control Home will take you to the top of a document, and Control End will take you to the end of the document. And I don't know, maybe some of you may know what these shortcuts are, and if you don't, then you have an extra tidbit of information, and if you already knew that, then I apologize. You'll just have to chalk it up to my not knowing your knowledge base. Another way to navigate through the system is if you look in the very bottom left-hand corner, it will say page 1 of 1. We only have one page here. But if you just click on that little feature over there once, you can actually click Go To and put in the number, the page number that you want to go to, or a bookmark that you want to go to. maybe a comment. You can look at all of these different fields that are available. You can even go to a specific graphic in your document. So all kinds of things there, and it's also the find and replace dialog box as well. Other shortcuts, Control R is the ruler. Excuse me, not in this version. In this version, Control R is right align, Control L is left align, and then Control E is center. And those settings can be up here underneath the formatting bar as well if you didn't want to use the shortcut. One of the elements that, another little shortcut that I love to share is a lot of people don't realize this, but I've got my I-beam here on the center of my screen. Just kind of watch it here just for a second. I'm going to try to move it into the center. And you can see what happens. My I-beam now has some centering lines attached to it. So when I see that, if I double click, it automatically puts my cursor at that point. But you have to make sure you have the underlining directly underneath it. See my I-beam and those little center marks underneath it? I double click and it will just put my cursor right there at that insertion point. You can do the same thing if you move your I-beam up to the right or over to the left. You just have to get it exactly right, not in the header. Now you see I'm back to the left, and see how my I-beam changes to the right align. I can double click, and that'll take me to the right of the screen. So little shortcut there that I wasn't sure if everyone was aware of, but that's a very helpful tool when you're working in Microsoft Word. And of course, everybody's favorite shortcut is Control Z, Z for zebra, for undo. That's also a favorite tool. All right, so one of the things that I wanted to move on to is the tabs. Getting a lot of questions out there on how to set a tab. So I just wanted to review that real quickly with you. First of all, if you want to pull up the paragraph marks in Microsoft Word, you could do that by right in the home button, there's a paragraph mark symbol, and every space, every character in your document will show up, and you can see the paragraph marks here that I have. And if I go ahead and press my tab key, you'll see that it changes to an arrow showing that that is 5 spaces or a ½ an inch indented. If I hold down the shift key and press tab, I can continue to get more tabs. Remember, if you have 2 or 3 or 4 columns in here and you press tab, often it will go to the next column. But if you don't want to go to the next column, if you really just want to indent 5 spaces, it's Control Tab. So keep that in mind as you work in Microsoft Excel. So a tab is just an indentation of 5 spaces, but what if you really wanted to align a table up, particularly with tabs? Well, this is what I would suggest you do, and I'm going to make some dummy text here just to experiment with. I'm going to type in employee name. I'm going to press tab, because employee name will be my first category. I'll type in address for that employee and press tab, city, tab, state tab, and zip code. Now I'm not worried too much because I see this tab did not leave very much space in there. That's okay, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next line by pressing enter. And then I'll type in the first employee name, tab, I'm going to type in my address, tab, and the city, tab, state, and the zip. Again, I'm not aligned very well, but that's okay. I would want to go ahead and continue to type in all of my information that I have. And instead of typing it in, I'm just going to clone myself. So I've got 3 employees. And now I can go in and actually set the tabs, and that's what I'm going to do. If you want, probably the easiest thing is to highlight the entire row, but you could just put your cursor in one row at a time. You didn't necessarily have to highlight it, but for my sake, I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. It just reassures me that I know I have it. And if I want to do a center tab on these, I'm going to need to tell the system that that's what I need to do. So over here in this left-hand corner, and it is very difficult to see. I don't know why they made it the smallest button they could, but over in this left-hand corner, you see this small little square. And right now it's set on left tab. If I position my mouse over that, it will come up and say left tab. But if I click again, it's going to show up to be a center tab, which means anywhere I place my tab, it's going to be centered on that ruler. So I've got centered. I'm going to come up here to the top, and I'm going to set it at, I'll do a 1-inch tab. I'll do a 2-inch tab. Just do it on the inch here. 3, 4, and we'll do a 5-inch tab. And you can see when I did that, it went ahead and set each of these to a center mark. So now I'm going to put my cursor in front of my first row, and I just need to press the tab key to tab the first one over. So here's my center mark, and you see employee name is aligned right in the middle of that mark. Here's my 2-inch mark. My address is aligned perfectly. Number 3 is aligned perfectly. 4, and then 5. So my top row has a center tab stop. Now for the rest of these tab stops, I want to add a left aligned tab. So I'll go ahead and highlight those. And I'll change my tab stop to left. And there's several. There's a decimal tab to align your pennies. There's also one called vertical bar. Every time you press the enter, it creates a vertical line between your data. There's a first line hanging and then back to left. So now I'm just going to create a left tab stop, and I'm going to try to get them about the starting point of each of my categories. Like so. Now my first row here, you always have to tab it in so it goes to the very first tab stop. And that's it. That's all there is to do when you're creating your tab stops. And I know there's a lot of questions relating to that. However, at least now that you'll have an idea of how to set those tab stops, and you can hopefully get some practice in that. Really, they're not too difficult. Just remember to press that tab key between each of your fields and then go back and create the actual tab stops. If you want to delete one of those tab stops, if you make a mistake, just put your cursor in one of the columns or rows, and then you would click and hold on the tab stop and drag it directly off the page, and that would delete it. And I'll undo that. All right, so Control tab or Alt tab, that will take you to tab in the same column. And if you press tab, it will take you from column to column. And the column or the tab stops are over in the top left-hand corner. All right, I'll take a minute and go ahead and save this file. We've got some good information here we don't want to waste. All right, the next item is our tables. I'd like to show you how to do a quick style table next. And tables are really a great way to add some interest into your Microsoft Word document. But the problem is, once you get a great looking table, when you do another table, you don't want to have to do it all over again. But there is a way that you can save it. It's called a quick style table. And that's what I'd like to show you next. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to insert a table. We're going to go up to Insert and select the table icon at the top. And I'm just going to choose a random, just 2x2 table. I still have my paragraph marks on, and I'm not sure about you, but sometimes they can be distracting when you're working. So I'm going to go ahead and take those off, and that's this button here in the middle. It's Control plus the asterisk if you want the shortcut for that. So I've got this table here, and again, not a whole lot of information, but I'll go ahead and type in some just some data to have. We'll put in a company name, and then we'll also put in a category for it, or how about city? That would probably be easier. So we'll put in Neosho County, of course. And what else here? We'll put in B&W truck beds. And of course, we got to do XYZ company. Buffalo. Okay, so we have a small little table, not very meaningful, but that's okay. I'm just resizing the columns so it fits better. You can also double click on the edge, and that's called best fit, so it'll fit to whatever contents are in there. And now I'm just going to go through and format it. I've got two tabs at the top. Anytime you have your cursor inside of a table, the Table Tools dialog box will show. So here you've got some different designs. And these designs are great. I mean, you can click them and it will change it instantly, but often they're overused and they're not very original. So instead of using one of the designs, you could do your own. For example, you could highlight the top row and change your shading, which many of you may know that how to do this. So I'm going to change this to orange, and then maybe the rest of this down here, I'm going to change my shading to a gray color, such as that. So once you have it, and let's do something with the font, we'll make it a little bigger and bold our headings. Once you have a quick table that you've worked in and you've made modifications to it, it can be much more complex than this. This is a fairly basic table that we have here, but you can build it however your specifications. You can make it as complex as you need to. Once you have it, now we're ready to save it. We want to save this template so we could apply it again in the future. So to save it, we're going to go up to the Insert menu again, and we're going to select the table icon. Now you'll notice we could go ahead and add more tables to this, more rows and columns. We could also draw a table with a pencil. And then down at the bottom we have an Excel spreadsheet. We can actually insert an Excel spreadsheet right into Microsoft Word. We don't have to mess around with tables. It could be an embedded spreadsheet. Or we have the quick tables, and here are some quick tables that have been designed by Microsoft Word. Most of them are calendars, you'll notice. See all of these here. So there is an option at the bottom that's called Save Selection to Quick Tables Gallery, and I need to select the table first. That would be helpful. So make sure it's selected by choosing this 4-arrow icon in the corner of your table. And then choose the table, insert from the Insert menu, choose Table, and then Quick Tables. And then you'll notice now I can select it. At the very bottom, I'm going to save it to my Quick Tables Gallery. And now I can give it a name. This is called a building block. So I'll give it a name. I'm going to call this my company template table. And then what gallery is it under? Now because this is a table, obviously I'm going to leave it under table, but look at all of these different building blocks that you can add. Maybe you've made a header and a footer in another document. You want to save it as a quick style, right? So save it, that way you don't have to constantly reapply it all the time or redo it. It's all about working smarter, not harder. And why reinvent the wheel on a lot of the stuff that you do every day? There's a table of contents, cover pages. You can see it just goes on and on. So there's all kinds of options, even text boxes that you can use. So I'm going to choose tables here. And then for the category, we can actually add a new category here. Maybe you're building it for a particular person, you could type their name in. Or maybe it's for a project, you could type that in. So I'll go ahead and create a new category. I'm going to call this Business and Industry. Select OK. I could give it a description, which I would recommend. You can actually do a search for them if you have an idea of a description. And then you can save it in the building blocks, or you could save it in one of your templates. For example, if I choose normal, every document that I create in Microsoft Word, I'm going to have access to this template. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'll have access to it. And then I'll choose OK. Now you won't really see any magic happen until you build another table. So watch this. If we go up and add another table, just like I did earlier, I had the 2x2, and this is what this started as. If I select it, I can go back to the Insert menu, select Table, choose Quick Tables, and if I'm lucky, Here it is at the very bottom. This is the template that I just designed. So if I select that, voila, there's my table. And then all I have to do is go back in and change that information for the next table that I want to build. It's an easy, quick way for not having to redevelop the work. And welcome back, Ruth. So I'm going to go ahead and click Save on this so I have it. And Control S is the shortcut for Save. So we've got the quick styles inserted, and you can see how easy that was. When you do the quick styles, it really makes a big difference. You're working smarter and not harder, and that's our goal. All right, so I'm going down to our next item. We are going to work with shapes now. It looks like we've got about 30 minutes left in the training. If there's no questions, I'll just continue to continue the training. I wanted to visit a little bit about shapes, how to add shapes, and then how to format them. Shapes have been a pretty important part in some of the documents that everyone is creating. So let me just take a few minutes and show you how to insert a shape. Up under the Insert menu, I'm still there from our table quick styles that we just did. Here is the Shapes category, and we have all kinds of shapes that we can use. And what's fun about shapes is that just because it looks like this doesn't mean that it can end up looking like that. You can format them and change the size and the dimensions, really everything about it you can change. So let's choose one here. I'm going to choose this dynamite looking one. And then you get a cursor, a little crosshair that you just click and hold, and then you can drag straight out into your document. Now with shapes, they're pretty much, the whole thing can be formatted. So you can format the fill, the outline, the shape effects. You can even do 3D effects on them. The easiest way to format a shape is choosing again from these designs up here. If you just move your mouse across them, you can see what the shape would look like, which is fairly easy to do. You can also right-click on this shape and choose a few more options, such as adding text. There's an Add Text feature. So if you choose that Add Text feature, you can click here, and then we'll make it a hyperlink. So now we have actual text that's been added to the shape, instead of inserting a text box on top of a shape. And now it's all one object. So that's kind of fun. Now when you move it, the text goes with it. It's one piece. If you put your cursor in there, you always can highlight it, and you can change your font just like you could if it were just a regular text box. You can make it whatever color you like. Kind of hard to see, but that's all right. I think I'll go back to white. That was easier to see. All right, you can also make shapes hyperlinks. I went ahead and selected the shape again, and I have my sizing handles that I can make it smaller. I can also rotate the shape if I want by using the green rotating tool. And then upstairs, there's also some other options for making the hyperlinks. The easiest way to do it is to simply right-click and select Hyperlink. And when you do a hyperlink, you can hyperlink it to an existing file or web page. So maybe we want it to go to Neosho. We would type in www.neosho.edu, and that would be the hyperlink for us. This little target frame is interesting. The target frame, I always choose to do a new window. And I know on Inside NC it also has a target frame, and what that means when you select a new window, when the user clicks on it, if they already have the internet up, it's not going to take away that page. It opens up a new browser window, so their existing window stays the same. I don't know about you, but it can be frustrating when you click on a link and then your page goes away. So, do your students a favor, choose new window in case they have something else open. And then over on the left, you can also choose a place in this document. Maybe you want to take them back to the top. You could create a new document, or you could have it go to an email address. So there's different ways you can hyperlink inside of Microsoft Word. Another great feature with the shape tools, if you right-click on the shape tool, you can select to edit the points. Edit points. And then really you have all these fun little sizing handles. You can just go to town with this and make whatever shape you want and get really kind of carried away. But you can see how the shape really kind of is defined. It's much different than when you started. Make this text come down a little bit. And you could do that all the way around. You could go through and edit your points and make a completely different shape if you want. So a couple questions from faculty and staff regarding shapes and how to make them hyperlinkable and how to add text to them. Hopefully that covers it. You can also change your alignment as well, your wrap. You just right-click on this shape and you can choose to wrap the text. If you keep it square, and of course I've been in here, I'm going to click this top handle and see if I can get it out of the table. There we go. If you keep it square, it's going to try to stick with your other content that you have in the document. Let's see if I can get it out of here. There we go. So, you know, square sometimes is a good option if you want to put it next to paragraph text and get it like a really nice close fit. You can also wrap it tight. There's a behind text, so you can act like it maybe is a little bit of a background so the text bleeds through. You can also put it in front of text. So lots of different wrapping options when it comes to pictures and different styles for your shapes. Okay, I'm going to talk about page breaks, and I think I'll open up a new document for this. Probably the majority of questions on the introduction level training have been related to page breaks. There seems to be some concern with how to get a different header and footer on every page, and then eventually what's a section break and then what's a page break. So let's talk about that for a few minutes. I'm going to pretend here that we are creating a document, and let's just use a research paper. It's the easiest thing to kind of understand. So we're going to have a cover page here to begin with, and I'm going to just move my cursor in the center of the document with that shortcut that I showed you earlier, and I'll put title of paper and, you know, all this other stuff, author name. And it looks like it's double spacing for me automatically, which sometimes can be a pain. If you want to know the shortcut to fix that, it's Control-2 for double space, Control-1 for single space, just FYI. Now, our title page should not have a header and footer on it. I want this page to be different from all the other pages. So how do I do that? If we want to add another page to a document, some would just press the Enter key and force your way down into the next page. While that works, it's not ideal because all of these extra enters are still going to be there. If I turn on the paragraph mark, you can see all of these little enters that you've added. So if you type more text in here, it's just going to push these paragraph symbols down to your next page, and then you'll know what you have to do. You got to go back and delete them in order to get it to work correctly. So I'm going to take these out because that's not always the best option. When you're done with your first page and you're ready to go to the next page, you don't have to enter until you get to the next one. You can insert a new page. And there are two ways to do that. The shortcut to enter a hard page break is Control-Enter. And that will automatically insert a page break, Control-Enter. You can also go to Insert and choose Blank Page, but that to me just takes a little more time. Just Control-Enter will add a new page. The problem with just a hard page break is whatever formatting you have upstairs in your header or downstairs in your footer will continue to the next page. Okay? Because it thinks that it's part of the same document. And your Word document can be divided into different sections. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and put a header up here at the top. Instead of selecting header, I'm just going to double click. It opens up the header. So I'll put in my last name and then maybe a page number. So over here on the far left is the page number. I'm just going to select current position, plug it in so I've got the page number in. and then I'll write a line at Control R to write a line. Alright, so now if I double click back on my page and get out of the header, and if I scroll down, yeah, there's my last name and there's the page number. It's continuing to the next page. But what if I don't want that to happen? Maybe this is the page that I don't want anything on, right? This is the cover page. So let's fix that. Instead of doing a page break, we're going to do a section break. So we're going to tell it that page 1 is one section. Page 2 is going to be the start of another section. You can have as many sections in a document as you want. I have had over 300 sections before. So keep that in mind, that basically every page in your Word document can have different margins, it can have a different style, it can have different headings and footers on them. But to do that, you have to have a page break. Page breaks are found under the Page Layout tab, and it's underneath Breaks. Now you'll see that you have a page break, which is just a normal hard page break. You also have a column page break. If you're typing in one column and want to continue to a next, then you could choose that option. And text wrapping can be a feature as well. Maybe you want a separate paragraph that wraps around an image. You could choose that. But the section breaks is what I'm interested in this training. And that's where you see down here at the bottom. You have next page, continuous, even, and odd. The next page is what you'll use the most. I'm going to select it first. And now I've got the next page on here. So now, look at my page break. It says section break, not page break. So if I double click up here at the top, look what my header now says. It says header section 1. If I scroll to page 2, it should say, and it does, header section 2. So upstairs on page 1, I could take all of this off, and as I scroll down, I want to put in my own header for my section 2. Now notice it says same as previous. I have to deselect that, and it's up at the top. It's a little faux pas, I think, of the program. It says link to previous. We don't want to link it to the previous. We want our own header for page 2. So now I can type in my last name, page, and we'll insert under design. We'll insert our page number at the current position, like so. And you'll notice page 1 does not have it because it has its own section. That's very important. We'll come down, we'll double click, and there's our header for page 2. There's our header for page 1. And I could continue with this. I could do another section break if I wanted to and have a completely different margin. This looks like 1-inch margins. Maybe my next page I want a different margin set just on that one page. You would add another section break just like I did a minute ago and do the same thing. Now I don't have time to get into all of the different types of section breaks, but if you do have questions, please email me. I'll be happy to show you what odd and even are. Just make sure that you do the next page section breaks, and just kind of keep a mental note of where your sections start and begin. That's why I like to use the paragraph mark, because you can see where they start and where they begin, where they end. If you don't have that, it looks like this, and you're not going to know if it's a section, is it a hard page break, or what it is. So turning on your paragraph marks is going to tell you where that section break starts. Also, another question I get quite a bit is, I have an extra space somewhere, this is not lining up correctly. If you turn on the paragraph marks, remember you're going to be able to see every space, every enter. It's much easier to determine where your mistakes are if you can see them. So use that paragraph mark tool to find out where those breaks are at. Okay, let's move on. Any questions over that? Ruth, are you okay with that item? If not, just send me a little note there and I'll make sure I respond. I've got 2 more items that I'd like to share in the training, and it looks like we have 12 minutes left, so I'm going to move on from the section breaks and the page breaks onto the next item, which is the Review tab. And under the Review tab, this is where you'll do your spelling and grammar check, and your thesaurus is here, as well as your translate features. One of my favorite features I use is the Synonym Tool, and that's if you just select, you put your cursor in a word in your document and right-click. If you're struggling to find a word and that might be a little more professional or meaningful, you can right-click on it and select synonyms, and it will give you a list of words that mean the same thing, which is amazing. If you didn't know that, I hope that helps you quite a bit. There are many times I'm searching for a word that I need, can't think of it, and this is very helpful. So just FYI on that. Also, if you make a comment on a paper or on a document for somebody, a colleague that you're sending to somebody else, you can highlight where you want your comment to be, or just put your cursor in that area. And then upstairs there's a new comment feature. If you select that one time, it will allow you to add a comment to the right-hand side, like so. And you can print just the comments if you'd like, or you can print the whole document with the comments. And then whoever is reviewing this document has the option to accept what you say or reject what you say. And if you reject it, then they have an opportunity to respond back. If you accept, we'll accept and move. It'll say there are no other comments in this document, so it'll be completed. You can also use the little drop down up here and choose just final, and that will take the comments off. Or you could just choose track changes, and that will also take any changes off that somebody else has made. So I'll go ahead and reject that comment, and that'll take me back to this document. The comments are a great way to share your document with colleagues and allow each other to respond instead of doing it all via email. You're doing a more collaborative effort. Also under the Review tab, there's the translation tools. There's a translate feature that will translate to a different language, but not just translating. You can also do voice. So if you have a microphone hooked up to your computer, as you speak to Microsoft Word, it will translate it to text as well. And that's a newer feature with Office 2010. There's a language option as well. You can change your language preferences, and that can be useful if you have international students. You could translate a document for them in their native language if they have a hard time understanding. The last feature on the Review tab I wanted to mention is the Restrict Editing, and this is will be reviewed more extensively in the advanced training. But the Restrict Editing will disallow formatting changes to be made, or you could also allow only comments in the document. And this is a great feature for forms or on group work that you don't want the styles to get overridden. And then last but not least, I told you about the spelling, grammar, and how it will check and tell you what grade level your paper was written in. If you remember, I showed you where the shortcut was for that. This is not the best document to proofread. However, it will tell you, here's those readability statistics that we turned on at the beginning of the training, and you'll see I only have 9 words, 41 characters, 4 paragraphs. But down here at the bottom, it will tell you what the grade level is. There isn't anything in this document to tell me, but 18 is the highest it will go to. I'm at 0, so I've got a lot of work to do. But it's kind of fun to check to see what the paper's grade level is. I've been checking a lot of documents recently when I'm working on personally for other colleagues, and it's great to see that. And what you can do to help it is, do that synonyms, and you can make it more professional by choosing more meaningful words. So there's the spell checker with the readability statistics. All right, the last element is saving and doing sharing in the file properties of the document. And I just want to go back here to the File menu just briefly. And just so you know, on the far right-hand side, it will tell you if the document was saved. If it was saved, it's going to tell you also how many pages it is, what the size of it is, how many words, and then this is the best feature I found very helpful. How much time did it take somebody to edit a document? And that can be noted here. You can also give it a title and a tag. And if you have not been tagging your documents, I would encourage you to do so. We're living in a digital world, and if you're sharing files, by tagging them, it'll make it much easier to index for others. So, you know, a tag can be separated by commas normally. So if this were a research paper, you could type in research, but I would be more specific by typing in the topic, maybe the date, author, that sort of thing. And then you can also add comments to it. So if this were going to another colleague, you could put, this is a rough draft. Please reply by 8 o'clock tomorrow evening. Think about what you could put in there for students or even to other staff members that you work with. You could put a note in there as you send it. We'll tell you when it was last modified, when it was created, at what time, if it were ever printed. And if it was printed, it would tell you when it was last printed. If there are more than one author, you could add that. You'll notice Anna Catterson pops up here as the author because my name has been listed under the properties, under the options menu. But if your computer is registered to somebody else, that's whose name is going to appear there. So if you have intellectual property, it's a great idea to put your own information in there. And you can add as many authors as you'd like as well. Then there's the show all properties. It gives you a little more details. It tells you what template it was from, the status. You could type in rough draft or final copy. If it is on a website or it's going to a website, you give it the hyperlink. So all kinds of information here. Up at the very top, you can also protect this document by encrypting it with a password, which means only the people you share it with, if they know the password, then they'll be able to open it. You can assign any password you want. So I'll type in Neosho here and choose OK. And it will ask me to re-enter it. OK. So now a password is required to open this document. So if I send it to somebody and it doesn't get into the right hands, I'm not too concerned because they're the only ones who know the password to open it. So if you've got something that's personal or maybe financial documents, you can go in and protect them with a password. You can also prepare it for sharing. Check out the issues. If you're going to go to Inside NC with it, it may tell you what are some errors. Or I love this feature. You can check accessibility. It's going to tell you if there's someone that has a learning disability or a handicap. It'll tell you if it's difficult to read. Maybe the font is the wrong size or it's not a sans serif font. It will bring up an error report and tell you what those errors are. All right, at this point, this concludes my training. It's 2 minutes till 9. And we have one participant in this training. Ruth, do you have any questions for me? I'm giving Ruth just a few minutes to answer, just to make sure if she does or doesn't have any questions. Remember, if there is something in the introduction area that I didn't cover that you want to learn more about, please let me know. The next Microsoft Word training that we will be having, and it is June 12th at the Chanute campus from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. June 13th at the Ottawa campus from 10 to 3, and then of course on the 10th of June we'll have the advanced Microsoft Word, whereas we'll be doing fillable forms and learning about changing it to Adobe PDF and actually working with the form tool, the developer toolbar. Very good. Glad to have you tonight, Ruth, and thanks for tuning in. Hopefully I'll see you June 10th for the next webinar on Advanced Microsoft Word. Again, the videos can be found on Inside NC or on our YouTube channel, which is Inside Neosho. Thanks again for joining me.